Questions from the audience. There's a fishbowl here that we will add those questions to. So is there still paper and pen in the back, Doctor?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So if you have a question in the forum, feel free to fill it out and we'll make sure that we get into the mix.
Thanks again. Now we will start with our question. The first question I'd like to direct to Ms. Pugh. What would you consider to be the two most significant issues to address in your first 100 days as mayor? And what is your plan to work on those issues?
That's a great question. And the issues that I want to prioritize come from the residents that I'm talking to. What I'm hearing from our communities about the areas that we need to make improvements on. What I'm hearing is we have families who feel like our crime levels are too high, right? So they don't want to raise their families here. They don't feel like they can live here safely. So we have to address our crime. And then our residents are also concerned about affordability. So what happens as we continue to grow, which North Charleston will continue to grow, but what happens to people who have lived here their whole lives, who are no longer able to afford rent, who are no longer able to afford their property taxes as those increase? So crime, affordability are the top two issues, but these things are related to a number of other issues, like how our economy is doing and how high-wage jobs are allowing people to make housing a little bit more affordable. But let's start with crime. Working with the police department, Chief Burgess has been on the job now for a year and a half, a little bit more than that, and he's got a 6-year vision. And his vision includes a lot of the things that I want the city to be doing, which is working with our communities to establish those relationships and to rebuild that trust. Because ultimately a lot of our crimes are retaliatory in nature, and we know that we need a strong relationship with our communities in order to find out who's committing these crimes. But also, let's look at data and make sure that we're thinking about data, where crimes are happening, the profiles of these crimes, and using that to be proactive about crimes that might be occurring in the future. And then let's adopt technologies that other cities are adopting that are working well with similar profiles of North Charleston. So are there technologies like the Shot Spotter, which can hear gunfire and alert our police department to the exact area where that gunfire was located? I know we've trialed that and it's improved over the past few years, but what are other cities doing that are working well? Because crime is not a problem unique to North Charleston. And then affordability, it's going to take commitment from the highest levels. So creating a department of housing innovation, so not just public housing, but how can we be innovative about everyone being able to afford to live here, and community development, but also getting collaborative with the groups that are already in North Charleston focusing on these issues, with Lamsey and Metanoia, which I believe the city is already doing a good job with. But if these are top priorities for the city, these need to be top priorities for our investments, and we need to make our investment decisions around solving these.
Thank you, Ms. Pugh. Brother Singletary, same question.
Well, the first thing I would attack is the audit. The city needs to have an audit because there is insufficient accountability for the funds in the city. It was mentioned earlier by the mayor that there was $20 million in undesignated funds. That is a surplus. The fund balance account is money that you have overpaid in taxes. The truth of the matter is that there is $150 million in surplus. 20 million of that 150 is unassigned. He is correct in that. But what he failed to tell you was that there's 150 million that should be used back in the community in order to provide services when it comes to jobs, contracts, community resources like comprehensive community centers. The second thing I would attack would be the crime. We are the crime capital of the state, one of the highest per capita in the nation. The reason why we have crime in North Charleston is because of chronic joblessness over an extended period of time. We know exactly where the crime happens. There is a map that anyone can go to, the crime data map on the city's website, and you can see that crime is concentrated strategically in the African American neighborhoods. Those happen to be the same neighborhoods with the highest unemployment in the state. And so when we take a look at decreasing crime, there is absolutely no possible way to do it without addressing jobs and contracts in those neighborhoods. When we take a look at, for instance, the Union Heights area, where we received $3.5 million for an extended period of 10 years, because Echo Avenue was noted as the third in the nation in terms of highest homicide. That weed and seed money came in, and rather than use it to take care of the crime in North Charleston on Union Heights, it was diverted to other places. The churches, the CSX Railroad, and other entities who happen to be in foreclosure, but not in the Union Heights area. And so what we have to do is, it gets back to accountability, making sure that first we audit the city, every single department, so that we know for revenue coming in, expenses, exactly what's going on, and we allow that to be available to the public. Second thing is we have to deal with the crime. There's no possible way that the richest city in the state, with the most number of African Americans, should have the highest crime rate in the state. That's how it is.
Thank you so much. We will then go to Mr. Darter. Pastor Dixon, you will be next, and we will end with you, Mr. Mayor. If at any time you need me to repeat the question, please just let me know.
If it's my turn, I'd like you to repeat the question.
Yes, sir, not a problem. What would you consider to be the two most significant issues to address in your first 100 days as mayor, and what is your plan to work on those issues?
Well, I think I already covered that in my introduction, at least one of them. I think we need to work extremely hard to get more community involvement. Whenever we talk about violence in the streets, that's because of lack of community involvement. And I believe that that's happening because at the top of our city food chain, there's a separation. People have been divided and conquered. And, it's a terrible shame when a huge number of people are scared to death of their own government. And that's what we have in North Charleston. We might have a lot of happy people, but it's really, really easy to be happy when you have your job and your house and your car. And these people perpetrating crime, this city should have been cleaned up a long time ago. The weed and seed money coming from the federal government keeps coming and coming and coming. We need to work this city away from weed and seed. We don't need to keep taking federal funds to fight crime. We need to get rid of the crime so some other city like Detroit or some place that has huger problems than we have can utilize those resources. So attacking government at its highest and bringing that pay down, bringing community involvement. And when Mr. Singletary talks about an audit, I'm not only in favor of an audit, I'm in favor of a forensic audit. We shouldn't be afraid to look deep into every expenditure. Not only that, we shouldn't be afraid to look deep into every contribution into my campaign and everybody else's campaign. We shouldn't be afraid to ask questions. And there are people in this city that don't want to ask questions. They don't want to come to city council. I came to city council and spoke one time, and my life was turned upside down by this city government. How dare a citizen come and speak bluntly, directly in a city council meeting? That's exactly why I'm here right now. After years of choking on the things that I've known about and watched with my own eyes, I've decided that I have to be involved, and somebody's got to step up and start talking about community involvement and getting everybody in this city working together instead of being divided and conquered.
Yes, Pastor Dixon here. I also, just as Dr. and Mr. Singletary have said, I also agree that forensic audit is absolutely necessary upon initially moving into this office. not only of the government and its activities, but also of law enforcement. We need to first make the the playing field plain by uncovering if there's anything, which I would think that there would not be, and there should be no reason why anybody would object to that, any kind of discrepancies that need to be clarified. But along with that, and it's been mentioned, the city of North Charleston over the last 2 of the last 3 years have had a per capita gun violence rate, death rate higher than the city of Chicago. We point a lot of fingers at Chicago, but North Charleston can't point fingers at Chicago when it comes to the death rate here. We need to seriously address that. I'm a member of the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence National Board of Trustees and recognized last year for the work by the National Bar Association for the work I've done trying to end gun violence. Some of the things that we need to look into, just as Ms. Peel said, was the fact that ShotSpotters was implemented here years ago, but then it wasn't picked up. ShotSpotters actually triangulates the position of gunfire and allows a connection between law enforcement to get to the scene of a gun where gunfire was made within seconds. Why wasn't that continued? Well, if we want to put finance over bloodshed, then that's why we can justify it, but we can't do that. There are other things that can be done. In 3 minutes, I really don't have time to elaborate on them because I also need to point out that one of the reasons we have a high crime and gun rate is because of lack of education here. We have 8 of the worst schools in the state of South Carolina right here in North Charleston. And it's known that the lack of education leads to criminal activity and incarceration. Even though the mayor has no jurisdiction within our Charleston County School District, we need to make sure that we have a mayor that will fight with that school district for better schools within our better education for our children. And I've consistently been inside of our school board trying to make that happen. That's one of the reasons why I need to be mayor, in order to make it happen. But also, along with that, is the fact that even with the education, those who don't make it need to be able to make sure that they're making a decent wage, a living wage, a $15 wage per hour minimum. And I intend to call a summit between all of the commerce entities here, small business and large businesses, and within 3 days' time, just let them know. When we come out of here, those that can't pay $15 an hour, we'll be paying $15 an hour, not just city employees, but all employees. Those that can't, we'll give a tiered time limit in order to get to that point. Thank you.
Well, first of all, a minimum wage is not something a local government can do. It is a federal minimum wage that is established. So to answer that right quickly, and if we've got $120 million in fund balance, I sure would like to know where it is and see it. And we have an external audit annually. We have to come in and look at all of our finances, and they give us issues where they think we need to improve in areas that they think are okay. But this is an outside group, and we rotate that. We have to. We do not keep one for over a period of 3 years. And if you look at the city's finances, we have to maintain some balance. But we invest heavily in this community. If you look at some of the projects that are going on right now, I've already mentioned the new 3 gym complex. It's going to be where we've got kids that can't afford to do travel ball, so we're going to bring travel ball here. We're going to bring it where our kids can participate and the parents don't have to pay for hotel rooms, food, and things of that nature for their children to take advantage of it and enjoy themselves. We've just opened 2 new senior centers in the last year and a half. We've got 2 more planned. Next one will be in the south end of the city and should start construction next fiscal year. We've got one that needs to then go to the north end. And that's for all seniors 50 years or older that want to participate. And once you join one, you're a member of all, so you can use any of those facilities. These are folks that have been left out over the years because the city had to catch up from a lot of things we didn't have. You gotta remember, we're only 48 years old as a city. We're still very young compared to others, but we still try to go out and do things that make us have a better community to live, work, and play in. I can tell you, you can say what you want about our police department. We have one of the finest police chiefs in the state of South Carolina, if not in the Southeast. He was trained through this department to get where he is today. His love for the community is greater than any police chief that I've ever seen or ever met anywhere in the state. And we are making strides, we're making improvements, but it takes the community to work with law enforcement to accomplish that. So I encourage you to be supportive of our law enforcement in your neighborhoods so that we can make the quality of life better in every neighborhood in the city of North Charleston.
A few more housekeeping notes. I just want to remind everybody that the microphones are very sensitive and you don't have to get right up on top of it. It kind of muffles the tone when you do. Also, don't feel like you're cheating us if you don't give us 3 minutes. If you can make your point in less than 3 minutes, great, because we've got so many questions from the audience, great questions. I've had an opportunity to get to them, and we really want to get those in as well. So make your point and move on. Don't feel like you're cheating. All right. And matter of fact, I'll take one from the audience if that's okay. This one says, what will be done to help families in the housing programs? It's based on gross income, not net. If a participant makes a bit more because of overtime, it's factored in. Why should someone's rent go up 400%? How can they improve their situation if every penny plus some is taken back? We will start with Mr. Singletary.
Absolutely. The housing program in North Charleston presently handles mostly Section 8. We do not have a Department of Housing that will allow for affordable housing. If you take a look, there was a impediments to fair housing study that was just published. It was done by City of Charleston, North Charleston, and Charleston County. It says that 30% is what should be considered affordable. So under my program, it matters not what you make per hour. I will make sure if you are interested in owning your own home, that you will spend only 30% of your income to do that. When we consider the CDBG funds that come in, presently, all of the CDBG funds for housing goes to one organization, which is Metanoia. That's absolutely absurd. It should be spread out throughout the city. When we take a look at recently, affordable housing was denied on Russelldale. Why would we deny affordable housing when that is, in fact, what we need in North Charleston? We have, again, if you want to take a look at the balance sheet, fund balance, $150 million in surplus. That's where you go to find it. We, for affordable housing in North Charleston, cannot continue to look at, for instance, $15 an hour. $15 an hour will only allow you to pay about $780 a month in rent. $15 an hour puts you at the poverty level. The national average is $25 an hour. So why should we not look at $25 versus $15? We need to at least keep up with what's going on across the nation. Affordable housing in North Charleston is a huge problem. The program that I have that allows an individual to purchase their own home is the program that our citizens need. When we consider, it was already mentioned, the $15 an hour. Well, the mayor's salary is 6.5 times that. Coming up, it will be 6.5 times that. So where one individual who works for the city can afford housing, there's someone else that will have to actually be on housing in order to live in North Charleston. When we talk about the police chief, it was not mentioned that prior to that position, what occurred was the org chart changed. And so every bit of the power to do that job was stripped before it was given to our Reggie Burgess and put over under Driggers, who was a special assistant to the mayor. Look at the org charts and see when the change took place. It took place prior to him being put in the job. Now, how does that affect housing? That affects housing because it does not allow him to bring the crime rate down because he does not control the $35 million budget that is underneath him at the police department that will help assist with lowering crime in those neighborhoods where people can use to renovate and to build affordable housing. So my program allows every individual in North Charleston who wants to own a home to spend only 30% of your income, and that's what we'll use and guarantee that you get in the house.
Mr. Summey, Mr. Johnson, Ms. Hill, Madam Clerk.
First of all, saying that Reggie Burgess is not the chief and does not make decisions is an out-and-out lie. Reggie Burgess is the police chief of the city of North Charleston. He runs that department. He makes decisions. He makes decisions on where people are going. And I will tell you, under his leadership, for the first time in 5 years, we are full capacity of law enforcement. We've been able to fill every position. Because those positions are now filled, we have a grant to add 7 more police officers that will be paid for by the federal government for 2 years, and then we roll them into our own budget. But until we were at 100%, we couldn't utilize the grant, which makes sense. The police department has always had someone they have to answer to, just like every other department in the city. It falls under the mayor's office. So when they have needs that are above and beyond what their budget calls for, or if they need to make adjustments in their budget, then they come to the administration to do so. And I can tell you, I have never turned down anything that Chief Burgess has wanted, because he is a great cop. He does a great job for us, and he's a wonderful leader. He's a leader not only in the department, but within the community as well. And for someone to say that he is a token police chief is an out-and-out lie.
Are we talking about affordable housing? You know, seems like every time somebody's a politician, they don't even answer the question. And I'm only aggravated because I think it is way below me, and I'm not your leadership yet. And it's way below the mayor to take this debate and bring it to that level of calling people liars. Now, if Mr. Singletary is mistaken, I think that's appropriate. But to set the civil situation into something that's not civil, I've seen things from my own eyes. Okay, I'm not going to throw any jabs here. I had a neighbor renting the house for years, always paid their rent on time. And the owner of the house decided they just didn't want to have the rental property anymore. They grew up in the house. It was willed to them through their father. The owner of the house wanted to sell it to the renters. My wife's pretty keen on credit and things, and we looked at their credit, and there wasn't any problem. And if they would have got a mortgage, they would have been paying a lot less money than what they were paying for rent. But for some reason, and I can only speculate, they couldn't buy the house. They couldn't get a mortgage. People with good credit will be paying less, and have always paid on time, couldn't get a mortgage. Now I don't know where it's gone wrong, but it's gone wrong. And when people keep on looking at the flashy new car thinking, yeah, we got it together, they're not looking at the engine that won't even start. We have things in North Charleston that won't even start. And we don't even have people getting into houses because we have a situation where people can't even start. You know, $15 an hour isn't enough. You know, I think that's a wonderful thing to raise, to get way above minimum wage. But you know, just like anything else, why does it keep working better for the people at the top of the food chain than anybody else? And why do they keep talking about everything as if everything's fine? Now, I'm going to talk about our police department. I don't have a problem with our police department as it's turning out. But it took a murder, and we had a North Charleston supervisor who on the witness stand said, Officer Slager is a good officer. So you have a supervisor somewhere in your department that is saying
Your time is
somebody that shoots someone in the back is a good officer. There's a problem with that.
Your time is up. We stay for any other candidates. What will be done to help families in the housing programs? It's based on gross income, not net. The participant makes a bit more because of overtime that's factored in. The end of the question, how can they improve their situation if every penny plus some is taken back?
We got to think about housing more than just as public housing, because there are a lot of families and a lot of workers who are making minimum wage and they don't qualify for public housing, but they still struggle. They still struggle to pay their rent. They still see home ownership as out of reach. So we got to look beyond public housing and address affordability holistically. You know, as a city government, we're large enough now and we're old enough now to evolve the way our departments work. You know, City of Charleston has a Department of Housing. So I would start by creating a Department of Housing, Innovation, and Community Development, a group whose sole job every day when they come to work is to focus on solving our affordable housing issue. And we need to look at our partnerships in the community, look at the work that Metanoia and Lansing is doing, see what federal funds are available and what city funds are available to create housing that is not just affordable in the near term, but has some durability and can stay affordable in the long term. And then at the city level, as we're thinking about properties that are dilapidated and the city is coming into ownership of those, especially if they're already in low-income neighborhoods, let's see how we can repurpose those to be affordable housing in the future as well. We got to think a little bit more broadly than affordable housing is just, you know, being on the Section 8 program, because there are a lot of families that don't qualify for Section 8 but are still struggling, and that's not just true in North Charleston, that's true across the country. So looking at what other cities are doing well, that's going to be the job of this Department of Housing, Innovation, and Community Development, making sure that our residents have the ability to live in North Charleston if that's what they want to do.
Point of order before I begin. What I was told in my email communication was that there would be 3 minutes allowed per question and then a 30-second rebuttal time. Is that correct? Okay. Just point of order. Because I wanted to rebut, but haven't been able to do that.
I've wanted to rebut, but I haven't been able to do that as of yet. So I want to start with a quick rebuttal, okay? I don't know how that's going to adjust into my time right now, but I just want to go there right quick. As far as with the mayor and the minimum wage issue, there are cities across the United States that have increased their minimum wage to $15 and successfully done it without any problem. Using the federal government as an excuse, that's all it is. Either we're going to help people or we're not going to. If we're the people's government, we're going to help people. As far as the $25 minimum wage, as my opponent said today, for somebody that has never fought for $15, that's ridiculous for him to even make that pipe dream. When it comes to Chief Reggie Burgess, who is doing an outstanding job, Chief Burgess, when Chief Driggers was brought on, was 24 years in already. If we talk about, and the reason why they brought Jiggers in, or the reason why they said that Reggie got the promotion this past term was because of his experience. Well, he had 24 years in when Chief Driggers was brought on. Reggie should have been promoted then. Maybe we could have saved lives in between now and then because of the great job he's doing now that have been done then.
All right.
Now, when it comes to affordable housing, we have a serious problem here in North Charleston. And one of the problems with that is the fact that people don't make any money. We said we live in a city that's 50% higher than the national poverty level. It's time for us to turn that around so people are at least able to afford housing that's accessible for them, keeping it at a certain level that's not going to hurt them or harm them. It's called rent control. And then we can look at other mechanisms to put in place, such as community land trust and things of that sort, in order to make sure that we're successful as making sure that anybody that wants a shot at the American dream in North Charleston can have it. Not that a certain 60% of our population lives in poverty and becomes part of that national poverty level.
Thank you so much for some clarity. In the rebuttal, you will have to indicate that you want to rebut. I would say by the raising of your hand, and then we'll acknowledge once they're finished with their statement. Let's go on to the next question. And we're going to start with We'll start with Mr. Singletary. In the past, the police chief, Eddie Driggers, reported directly to the mayor of North Charleston. With the appointment of Chief Reggie Burgess, Eddie Driggers is now special assistant to the mayor and overseer of the police, fire, and code enforcement. As mayor, would you change the current change of command and why?
As mayor, yes, I would. I would return it to where it was. Presently, the chief of police reports to the special assistant to the mayor, which is Eddie Driggers. Prior to Reggie Burgess becoming the police chief, Eddie Driggers reported directly to the mayor. So, as I said before, the position was stripped of its power. It was Reggie Burgess, Eddie Driggers, Keith Summey. It is still Reggie Burgess, Eddie Driggers, Keith Summey. So nothing has changed except we have now had a change in title, and we have a police department. Understand, we've got many good policemen that we want to go home safe every night. And my frat brother, Reggie Burgess, is a wonderful person. However, he is handcuffed by the administration when it comes to doing his job. There's no possible way that you can bring homicide down by walking in the street. Nowhere in the country does that happen. We are at full capacity, nearly 500 policemen, but what was failed to be said was that only 18% of those are African American in a city that is 50% African American. Okay? So against 4 out of nearly 500 policemen, there's absolutely no way on God's green earth that homicides in North Charleston will decrease by us walking in the streets. Chronic joblessness over an extended period of time is what drives crime rate with lack of education. We have both in North Charleston. So we have to increase the quality of education. We also have to make sure that for the police department, that they are allowed to get out, do their job, that the city uses parity in order to make sure jobs and contracts are given to the areas in this city that have the highest crime rate. That is the only thing that's going to bring it down. In terms of restructuring, as I said, yes, I would restructure it. I would give the power back to the police chief by letting them report directly to the mayor so I can hear the concerns of the public coming directly from them, not from a third party. And so that's what I would do in terms of restructuring and why.
Rebuttal.
Mr. Mayor, you can go with the rebuttal.
Mr. Driggers doesn't work for the city anymore. Hasn't for several months. He has been battling cancer, and he no longer is employed by the city. And the chief reports directly to me. If I'm not available, he reports to my other assistant. I mean, that's a common chain of command for every department in the city. But on behalf of Mr. Driggers, he is a happily retired individual traveling and enjoying his life.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now we will go to Mr. Daughter, Peel, and then we'll end with Dixon and Mayor Summey.
Repeat the question.
Yes, sir. In the past, the police chief, Eddie Driggers, reported directly to the mayor of North Charleston. With the appointment of Chief Reggie Burgess, Eddie Driggers is now special assistant to the mayor and overseer of the police, fire, and code enforcement. As mayor, would you change the current chain of command and why?
So, you work in media, is that right?
No, sir, I work in civil rights.
Right, civil rights. And we have another person who works in media.
Yes, sir.
Is there any reason that question was structured in a way so Mr. Summey would have this rebuttal?
No, sir, we are not in charge of doing the questions.
Okay, I think what I'd like to do right now is really, anybody who wants to join me, join me. But I want to say a quick prayer for Mr. Driggers. Father God, you know all things. Lord, bring health and healing and longevity to Mr. Driggers. Thank you, Lord, for bringing wisdom to him to know that his family is most important and being with his family instead of on the job. Lord, allow that time to be full and complete. In Jesus' name, amen. As far as the structure of the police department goes, you know, it's a paramilitary. And in a paramilitary situation, it should be like a chain of command. And when a ship runs aground, they don't blame it on the lowest ranking guy. Okay, they blame it on the captain of the ship, the admiral that's in charge. He's the one who loses his job. So whenever things happen, instead of police officers losing their jobs, I think we should look to a new administration that's going to take, and I'm talking about forensically, look at the police department where we don't have the same problem again. It wasn't until body cameras came along that a lot of the old timers that I witnessed with my own eyes beat people for no reason started retiring. I'm in Lowe's listening to a couple of them talking about why they're retiring. I was eavesdropping, sure, but it was a public place and they were speaking in a public place. The kind of abuse that's been going on in North Charleston is still rampant. The only difference is it's gone underground. This kind of abuse used to be in your face. Now it's underground. I have personally been in an elderly person's house, black person's house, in a wheelchair, when somebody's breaking into their house. Of course it didn't happen because I was there. Nobody's going to do anything on my watch. North Charleston police arrived and they started busting the chops of the elderly black man in a wheelchair. They didn't even care that somebody just broke his window out and there was a witness.
Mr. Daugherty, time's up, sir.
Thank you. That's a true story. That's North Charleston.
Thank you. Ms. Hill?
I just want to start by saying that I have great respect for Chief Burgess. Chief Burgess is from the communities, from Union Heights. I actually had the opportunity to be in this very room when the announcement was made that he was going to be Chief of Police. And this was a standing room only situation. It was packed wall to wall. And you could see and you could feel what it meant to this community to have Chief Burgess elevated to that position. I fully support Chief Burgess. The fact that, you know, Eddie Driggers is no longer in that role as of a couple of months doesn't change the fact that that's how it was structured. And I want to dig into that. Ultimately, Reggie Burgess needs to be supported to execute his vision. He needs to have the resources that he needs from the city, and he does that by reporting directly to the mayor and letting the mayor know what he needs. You know, Chief Burgess, I think, he's doing a great job working with the community to solve a lot of the issues that some of the candidates are talking about. And no one's saying that there aren't issues, that there aren't trust issues between our community and our law enforcement division. But he's working really hard on those issues. And he has the right plan. I've had the opportunity to sit down and listen to him talk about his 6-year vision. And it has key milestones to address some of these things. So to say he's not working on the issue would be unfair. I think he recognizes that some of these issues are there. I think that he is committed to having a department that is working with the community, not against the community. And I want to make sure that he's supported at the highest levels to make sure he can execute his vision.
I agree fully in all of the descriptions that are given of our current chief. Chief Reggie Burgess is an outstanding person for the job. And given the opportunity to do his job, the job that he's been trained to do all of his life, I think that our criminal element, the serve and protect aspect of law enforcement in North Charleston will be realized. The problem is, though, from day one, Chief Burgess was operating up under someone else other than the mayor at a rate of $152,000 a year that Chief Driggers, the former Chief Driggers, was given, whereas the new chief, Chief Reggie Burgess, was only making $132,000. There's something wrong there. And to even stop and say, well, you know, he's no longer there because he has cancer, we're not going to fall for that type of a line anymore. And the people of North Charleston deserve better. It was not necessary to have that interim position all along, so it should not have been put in there once the new chief was established. And I'm sure that Chief Burgess, our fire chief, and those who are in charge of code enforcement will continue to do outstanding jobs in their positions now that Chief Driggers, former Chief Driggers, is not with us as far as in the department. And we'll keep him in our prayers for sure. Now that $152,000 though, that we were paying him annually since he was elevated to that position, we need to be sending that money elsewhere or giving it, making sure that it's dedicated to our law enforcement department, that Chief Burgess has access to that money in this fight to end this gun violence and this crime in North Charleston. What happened to that money? I don't know. How did it get restructured? Maybe we can pay for ShotSpotter now. Maybe we can at least use that to pay for ShotSpotter to begin to end this gun violence that we see. Thank you.
As a point of privilege, I just wanted to say Chief Burgess is with us this morning. Just give him a minute. We will end with Mayor Summey.
You know, I wish the chief was up there because he can tell who he responds to. It has been the makeup of this city. Every department head on a daily basis has a direct line to an assistant in my office so that they can get what they need done in a hurry. Chief Burgess and I have breakfast together every Tuesday morning. We sit down and talk about any needs he has, anything that's going on, any decisions that he has. I can tell you, any reorganization of that department that has occurred in the last year and a half has been his reorganization. Not mine. I'm not a cop. I've got a cop. He knows what he's doing. He's trained to do what he is doing. And he's doing a darn good job. And I can tell you, he knows. If you look on my phone, I have probably 30 texts per 2-week period from him. Every time there's a shooting, I know about it. He lets me know directly. He lets me know the outcome. He lets me know what is going on in capturing people that are doing these things. That's because I am the administrator. But I am the administrator of 1,200 employees. And therefore, I have to have other people that can take and help move things forward when any department head needs it, and every department head goes through that process.
The North Charleston org chart says very clearly that it was changed prior to Reggie Burgess being put in place as the police chief. Look at both org charts. They're on my Facebook page. And you can see the change and the shift from one individual in terms of accountability, who he reports to the other. In addition, if you look right now, today, on North Charleston's website, 50,000 and above.
What time is up?
Regulars is still there.
Pastor Dixon.
So the question that it would be begged to be asked,
Question that would beg to be asked in light of what the mayor said is, why then was this position created in the first place for the former Chief Driggers? If it's not necessary now, and it wasn't necessary then, why did this position that paid $152,000 a year, why was it created? In a climate where nepotism is said to run rampant.
We are moving on to the next round. This question for all of the candidates, and we will start with, who hasn't started yet? Pastor Dixon.
No,
You start, all right, Mr. Dodd, back in my part. How would you address the food desert situation in North Charleston? There's a lack of grocery store there, so a couple of questions here. What about getting a grocery store in the city of North Charleston, the area of Shipwatch Square, when Dixie closed in 2006? Candace, if you were the mayor, how would you address that issue? Mr. Donner, Ms. Pill, Pastor Dixon, Singletary, Mayor Summey.
Yes, sir. Oh, my goodness. I prefer Pastor Dixon. I don't know why there isn't a store already. You know, I don't know the inner workings of the decision, but I do know some things around there kind of got fouled up. Donald Trump Jr. was involved in something, and you know, it's just like all these things are happening. And if you go to the Post-Courier and you try to read about it, it's overwhelming because Post-Courier seems to do a really good job reporting on all this, let us say, coincidental encumbrances to the people having a place to shop. You know, I think of an old timer. He said to somebody else in front of me one time, he said, you know, I don't mind you making a mistake. As a matter of fact, I don't mind if you make lots of mistakes. But why is it every time you make a mistake, it's in your favor? And so far, all these mistakes that doesn't have a grocery store down there, it's in somebody else's favor. And someday, when there is a grocery store there, it's going to be in somebody's favor. They might even want it named after themselves. You know, I would like the community to be a community. I don't, you know, if you look at this panel, we're divided right here. You got black people at this end and white people at this end. And in our audience, is anybody in here on Section 8? Raise your hand. I mean, this is a moment. We don't even have involvement from the lower tier people. Because a lot of them are scared to death. I have them tell me that. You know, to be honest with you, I'm scared to death too. You know, and I really don't know who's really in control here. But you know, I will go back to, you know, our problems in South Carolina go way up to our Constitution. And our problems in North Charleston go up to the Constitution of the city of North Charleston. Those are the things that need to be rewritten in a way where people aren't afraid to be involved, where people aren't afraid to stand at the podium addressing their elected officials, where they know that they're not going to be mistreated soon thereafter. You know, if I take an oath, you know, I keep the oath, and my oath is there will be a grocery store available to anybody to walk to. And I about guarantee you that Walmart with their little grocery stores would have been there a long time ago if they weren't nervous about coming to North Charleston and what they had to do to get there. That's an organization that will pull the plug on property if they smell a rat.
Access to healthy food should be a fundamental right of every North Charleston resident. And if we can't attract a grocery store, we should continue to try. We should continue to try and bring a grocery store in that area. But in the interim, let's think about creative solutions to bring healthy food to those people living in those food deserts. I want to highlight an example of Fresh Future Farms in the Cherokee area, which is working really hard to provide produce to the folks in that community. And Jermaine Jenkins, who runs that property, She's fighting hard to keep that land. It's been leased to her from the city, and she's just done a Kickstarter campaign to raise money to buy that land from the city so that she can continue to provide produce to her neighborhood. She's not making $1 million here. She just sees an issue in her community and she wants to solve it. So we need to be looking for groups that are already committed to solving this problem and support them. We need to support her. We should have given her that land or sold it to her for $1 a long time ago. If there are folks in the community that have creative ideas and they want to help solve this challenge, we should work with them. We should also get creative. We have South Carolina farmers who have produce, they have food, and they want to sell it to South Carolina residents. So how can we bring that fresh food to the people who live here in North Charleston? Some things that other cities have done that's worked well is have a permanent shed where there's a constant farmer's market. We have farmer's markets on rolling schedules. Not everybody can make it to those. I myself try to purchase my produce from the farmer's markets, but it's hard sometimes. So having a dedicated place where folks can go and they know that at any hour, any working hour, that there's going to be fresh produce that they can feed their families. That's what we need to be focused on in the interim. We need to continue to focus on bringing the grocery store. Since 2005, we haven't had a grocery store in that area. That needs to change.
Thank you very much. And just a point of clarification, there was no assigned seating arrangements except for Mayor Summey's seat. I do believe when I came in, Mr. Donner was the first to sit down. So if anyone has a problem with the seating arrangements, please feel free to move wherever you want.
I have a rebuttal to that.
I don't know if you can rebut the monitor.
You know, I didn't really infer that, and I didn't mean to imply that there was anything going on there. But it is a true example of the division. You know, we have communities where people's economic background is divided. You got people that are doing real well in an area and people that aren't doing so well. It's a melting pot country, and yet we don't represent a melting pot in the city of North Charleston.
Mr. Dixon, Pastor Dixon.
Unfortunately, as I look from this position out into this audience, the division the appearance of division that's sitting up here is not the same thing that I see when I look out at our community right now. You see, we're closer together than we are separate. And we need to understand that this optic is not the reality of what our community represents. This optic is. We got to understand that the food desert, the lack of a full-service grocery store on the south end of North Charleston is indicative of the process of gentrification. One of the ways that we know that it's been proven that areas will begin to go down is to deprive them of access to food, fresh produce, the things that's going to even tend toward a healthier lifestyle. And so since 2005, for 14 years, the south end that we've seen has been flooded with guns, flooded with crime. Educational system has imploded upon itself, poverty. Take the food out of there also. These are all the symptoms of gentrification. The things that are going to make that area, unless we stop this, accessible to the people who don't live there now and are expected to come once the people that are there are forced out. I agree with everything that Ashley Peel said. Everything. Especially the part about empowering and strengthening those who are doing the work, like Jermaine Jenkins at Fresh Future Farms. She should have, not to ask or to beg or to seek assistance, she should have assistance being voluntarily given to this city. And once I'm elected mayor, we will have a department set up in order to nurture and provide that assistance for everyone in this city who wants to enrich our city for everyone else. Everyone. This is something that should never happen within our city, that the city government itself leaves its citizens to fend for themselves, and if they don't make it, oh well. Not on my watch. not with me as mayor, and not in the city anymore.
Mr. Singleton.
Let me first say that, elected mayor, in 2020, there will be a groundbreaking for the grocery store in that area where the food desert is. No ifs, ands, and buts. Now, the reason why we don't have one, simple. The mayor, supported by council, does not want one in the area. Let me explain. The food desert, a developer requested to put a grocery store in that area, and it was denied. They did not allow them to put a grocery store in that area. There was $1 million that was given in the Navy-based hospital deal for a grocery store in that area. In addition, $1 million has been given to the museum downtown, caring more about downtown than the people in that area. Those $2 million alone would have built the grocery store. The $1 million that went downtown and the $1 million that was given in the Navy hospital deal for a grocery store. So when we look at this denial of what I feel are basic rights, it's the same denial as why we have 8,000 people in North Charleston who cannot vote. It's because of a numerical majority gentrification issue where they refuse to allow that to happen. Now, the food desert itself. I grew up in this area, so I know at one time there was at least 5 grocery stores supported by the people in that area who were making less than they're making now. So whether they can support a grocery store is not the issue. There's a grocery store in the mix if you go there, and it was just done. And so when we consider the food desert that we have, there's absolutely no reason whatsoever that we should not have a grocery store, except the area is targeted for gentrification. And if you want people to move out, then you cannot nurture them where they are. And so that's why, at every turn, the city, the leadership, the mayor and council has denied anyone coming in the ability to build a grocery store in that area. The $1 million that was given in the deal, the city came back and said, well, it was only 50 or 500,000 that would be in a tax credit. That's not what it said. It said $1 million was given that should be put into an FDIC insured institution. You can't put a credit in there. And so the only reason is because they want to gentrify the area. And like I said, elected mayor, groundbreaking for the new grocery store in North Charleston Food Desert will begin in 2020.
The city has offered to subsidize any loss of operation to any grocery store that would go in there. We would make them whole. We can't get, how many grocery stores are closing around the area now? Because people are buying online. You can call, what is it, any of the stores now and make your order and drive up, they'll come out and bring it, put it in your car for you. It's not the grocery stores like it used to be. We have worked hard to try to get a grocery store in that area, to the tune of even trying to do a community grocery store. We're working on something now that we may be able to get some money to do that through a grant, but it will have to be operated by the community. We cannot get any chain grocery store. We have a 2-acre tract in Shipwatch Square that is designated for a grocery store, and our council would give it to any grocery store that would come.
Rebuttal. The mayor promised this community, promised on video, to build a grocery store for, quote, those people. For those people. If the city had to pay for it, with $150 million in surplus and us giving $1 million at a time, we gave $1 million to Philip Berlinski, attorney, and they refused to tell why. We gave $1 million to the museum, and on. We're giving millions of dollars at a time, but we refuse to put a grocery store in that area. There is absolutely no excuse whatsoever for that kind of behavior.
Rebuttal, I challenge you to give me legitimate documentation on anything you just said.
We got it. Thank you so much, everybody. We're going to kind of switch gears. Let's go into infrastructure. I live in Latson and I work in North Charleston, so traffic, it's not great. And I can't imagine those that do not have transportation rely on public transportation to get where they need to go. Hence my next question. Hundreds of North Charleston community members have expressed a need for increased bus frequency to get them to various employment and education opportunities. As mayor, what action would you take to increase the frequency of bus service to better serve the people who need it? I want to start with Mayor Summey.
Well, we probably have the largest ridership in public transportation in the area. Is it adequate? No. But Carter is not operated by any one government. The buses came through the federal government at first. Now they're having to replace them. They're trying to get grants. We had to take over from them the building of the new train station, bus station, because they couldn't make it happen. By the way, there's a grand opening of that Monday if you would like to come at 10 o'clock. But we are in the middle. We are the hub. Everything comes through us. You've got both interstates intersect in North Charleston, but on any given day, as a city of about 115,000 people, there's 350,000 people driving through North Charleston. Some of them stop, some of them don't, but they're coming through. And the roads that they're traveling on are controlled by the state and the federal government. They're not having any difficulty building a port access road, but we, in an agreement, are supposed to get 3 new overpasses to help us at rail crossings so that traffic will continue to move. And to date, they've not come up with funding, no guarantees, but yet in the agreement, they will be in place by the time the port opens. It can't happen. It will not do us any good to sue the state government in state court. So we'll be going to federal court in a lawsuit.
Thank you. Singletary, Dixon, Peel, and Dodd.
When it comes to transportation, we need smart transportation in North Charleston. And there are things that can be done. However, what we must do is remove the people who are getting benefit from the present dilapidated system. More to the point, Carter, which is a shell, it's a company that gets the contract to run the transportation. However, they farm everything out to a company called Transdev. Transdev is not even in the United States. It's out of France. And so every dime goes to an out of the country corporation called Transdev. Now, who sits on the Carter board? The incumbent mayor sits on the Carter board. His son, Elliot Summey, sits on the Carter board, and other individuals. If Carter is the problem, then what we need to do is remove Carter and get a better solution. When we take a look at the dilapidated structure with Carter, it is because there's contracts for the gas, for the oil, for the spark plugs, for everything that goes into dealing with Carter. There are many other smart ways of providing transportation. We're not the first city to grow or to need transportation as we grow. When we have a company like Boeing with a $23 billion revenue coming in, there's an economic impact fee that must be given to help with transportation. This is not the first place that Boeing has gone, so we can look at studies and analyze it from other places. Carter is part of our problem because there are protections for those who are involved with Carter. When we take a look at transportation in North Charleston, yes, we are pass-through. So we do an HOV, a high occupancy vehicle lane, and all kinds of other smart things that we can do to alleviate some of the traffic. Light rail is one option. Many places in the world, they use monorail. So there are a lot of things, while expensive, it can be done. There are a lot of things that we can do, but the first thing that we must do is remove the ability for profit to be taken in the light that we are a competing priority, where the profit is, for some, more important than to allow to move people from one place to another.
I have to stop and wonder sometime. I moved here to this area in 1985, and I came here from Chicago via Oakland, California, and Philadelphia. And, I never had a driver's license before I got here. Never needed one. This public transportation was excellent everywhere I lived. Excellent. I could get anywhere I wanted to go any day of the week that I wanted to go there, and for a reasonable amount of money. This is in 1985. Our current mayor, the Incumbent, who's built a really great city, I cannot take that away from him. He took office 25 years ago, and the city has grown, and it's grown immensely. But one of the tasks of a mayor is to have vision and foresight of what is to happen, what's to come. And in 25 years, there's been no significant changes to our transit system under this mayor, to make it so that now we shouldn't even have to have this conversation, because we should already have a transit system in place that accommodates anybody and everybody in the Tri-County area. But this conversation is now being pushed forward because of people like William Hamilton and best friends with Low Country Transit, who have been out here grinding and pushing CARTA and other entities to start looking at greener ways to get people around, where we can reduce our carbon emission footprint by cutting down on the traffic on our interstates, by decreasing our traffic accidents and the time in traffic, by promoting the ridership within our public transit system that unfortunately has gotten off the ground years before it needed to get off the ground. So when we look at the obligations that a mayor has to enrich a city, we have to ask ourselves, why is it that right now we're having this conversation about public transit, when the conversation should be about what we're going to do while we're riding public transportation, not when we're not.
Our traffic is one of the biggest issues I hear from residents about, and I think a lot of times the problem with planning is that we plan for the traffic needs that we have today. And by the time that we are finished with those installations, it's 5 or 10 years later, and we really need to be planning for the growth that we're going to experience in the next 5 or 10 years. Expect that growth to come and plan for that today. I agree with some of the statements that both Singletary and Dixon have said. Singletary mentioned an economic development fee. When we're bringing in these large organizations like a Boeing and like a Mercedes-Benz, that's great. They bring those jobs, but they also bring those people. And so they are exacerbating some of the issues that are caused by the growth that they themselves are bringing. So requesting that they contribute into the community so that we're solving things like traffic and infrastructure and housing is not above board. But we need to get creative about how we're solving getting people around the city and how we're moving people, not just within North Charleston, but also to other areas in the Tri-County. Because like Mayor Summey said, a lot of people come through North Charleston. We are a hub. And another thing that Dixon said was we need greener ways of getting people around, which I agree with. I support the bus rapid transit project. We can't afford a light rail. The ridership won't support it, and I know you all don't want your tax dollars to continuously be going to support a project that's always going to be in a deficit. So we can get the bus rapid transit, which is going to be a dedicated line from Somerville to the peninsula that can get folks from Somerville to downtown within less than an hour. So we need to support projects like that, but we also need to support infrastructure for folks who don't own a car, but they want to be able to walk around and they want to be able to bike around safely. So safe bike lanes and safe sidewalks, because we also got to serve those folks who don't have a car, who aren't riding the bus. So continue to focus on CARTA. I understand the city doesn't tell CARTA what to do, but we have a pretty big bat to bring to that playground because they serve so many of our riders. And our riders pay so much of their budget. So we got to get creative about solving it, but we also need to continue to invest in the public transit system, not just the buses, but in our bus rapid transit.
together, I guess, because we have all this traffic going through North Charleston, and I don't think the different governments are really working together very well. And I honestly don't know why that's happening. I don't know if it's like the fire hydrant complex or where everybody's got to have their own fire hydrant to do whatever they're going to do to, and they don't want anybody else doing anything on the fire hydrant. But you know, the bus rapid transit has already been paid for. Voters voted for a percentage of their taxes to go to it. The money's there, and this is indicative of our governments not working together, because we have a government, Charleston City Council, or County Council, I should say, Charleston County Council, that instead of taking the money the voters voted and using for that, they keep trying to divert it to build a highway for rich white people to go to Kiowa. You know, it's like our elected officials don't care what the voters have voted for, but somehow they never get it done, even though the voters voted for it. And somehow the money keeps sitting there, and they keep trying to take it and use it somewhere else. And it goes right back to what I'm saying. There's people at the top of the food chain do whatever they want, and people at the bottom of the food chain suffer. They don't have rapid transit because governments are either working together to keep it from happening, or they have an absolute failure of being able to work together.
All right, the elephant in the city and the country, gun violence. We see it over and over and over, far too often. Guns are being pulled out and used in public places. Most recently, the parking lot of Northwoods Theater. As mayor, what will you do to support the police in their efforts to reduce gun violence in our city? And how do you feel about gun control laws? What would you do to support the police in reducing gun violence in the city and your belief on gun control laws? Start with Pastor Dixon. It's Bill.
Okay,
Let me correct that. Most recent situation was just yesterday when a privately owned vehicle with citizens and children happened to cut off another vehicle, and the other instance of road rage where the driver of the other vehicle, occupant of that other vehicle, decided to chase that vehicle and fire shots into a car with kids, and then happened to outrun law enforcement, which is that's not exactly the way it usually works out. So that was just yesterday. Gun violence in North Charleston is ridiculous. It's off the chain. As I said earlier, per capita, 2 out of the last 3 years has been higher than the city of Chicago. And that's reality. We need a plan. We need a working plan. I come from the streets of Chicago. Probably the only candidate up here that's been shot at, okay, in a non-military situation. I know one here has lost a loved one to gun violence. But the thing is, though, I've been out here in the streets grinding, trying to end this gun violence for years. I've stood with mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers over the years, and I've cried with them and been at cemeteries and more funerals than you want to shake a stick at trying to end this gun violence. I was elected to the Beatty Campaign's National Board of Trustees because of the work I've tried to do here, tried to integrate my work into the North Charleston Police Department under Chief Zumwalt and under Chief Driggers, and was just ignored all the while that I tried to bring input. Born and raised in the projects of Chicago, I've been around gangs, guns, and drugs all my life. I know a little bit about guns. And so I've tried to help in order to stop the bloodshed that has been consistently rejected by this administration here. That's got to stop. I'm elected, one of the first things I'll do is to become a member, along with Mayor John Tecklenburg, along with Mayor Steve Benjamin in Columbia, of the Mayors Against Illegal Guns. Unfortunately, the mayor of this city has not even made that step. I will use this bully pulpit of the third largest city in South Carolina to ensure that our state legislators understand that common sense gun legislation, especially expanding Brady background checks that has since 1994 kept 3 million guns out of the hands of people who should not have them. I will make them understand that the mayor of the third largest, soon to be second largest city in South Carolina wants this done and wants it done right away. I'm an advocate, I'm an activist, and I will not drop that just because I take on the title of mayor. What needs to be done for the people will be done in order to protect and serve the people.
Thank you very much. So everybody know we have approximately 24 minutes left in the forum, Mr. Gibbons.
I'm certain that all of you have opened the Post and Courier, the newspaper, to read about North Charleston, and 90% of the time what you're hearing about is something related to our gun violence. And I know, just like me, you all are tired of it. And I agree with Pastor Dixon. He's quantified the problem very well, but I didn't hear a lot of solutions. How do we solve this? I think it starts with our law enforcement team. And I mentioned Reggie Burgess. He's from Union Heights. He knows this area. He knows that a lot of our crimes are retaliatory in nature. Now, how do you address some of that? You got to build good relationships with your communities, because ultimately you need your communities to come out and speak up when they know something that's going on in their communities. And most of the time, there are folks in those communities that know what's going on. So we need to build relationships with those communities. And we do that by, one, let's hire for diversity. Let's make sure that our law enforcement team looks like the communities that they serve. And then let's make sure that those folks are on the ground, boots on the ground, creating relationships, not just policing, but creating relationships, going to those community events and making sure that they understand what the issues for those communities are and that these folks are seeing familiar faces over time. But we also need to adopt data, making sure that we're looking at the statistics, understanding the profiles of these crimes, and using that to be proactive about where crimes might occur next, what areas are most prone to crime, so that we can do some proactive policing. And we need to adopt technology. We've talked about shot spotters. If gun violence is our #1 issue in the city, and I think a lot of our residents are leaving North Charleston because that is our #1 issue and they don't feel safe here, then we should be putting money towards solving this by adopting technology like ShotSpotter and anything else that our law enforcement team can utilize to understand where gun crimes are happening and who's behind them. So we got to implement some common sense practices. We're not going to find every illegal gun out there. We need to be proactive about how we're policing to understand where crimes might occur before they happen. But we also need to get better relationships with the community so that when crimes do happen, we feel like we have partners in solving those crimes.
I happen to be fortunate to have a next door neighbor who is an activist in this area, and I love my neighbors. They're the best neighbors that anybody could ever have, and I appreciate my neighbors. This is a very complicated issue, and 3 minutes isn't fair. I do want to tell Mr. Burgess, I wouldn't have recognized Mr. Burgess in a Walmart or anywhere else. But I will say that the new hires, the new officers that you've been hiring, I've been so impressed. The difference between the old school, the school that promoted things that police should never have done, and losing the respect of the community. And thank you for that. When you lose the respect of the community, I won't say that just because you have problems in the street, you have problems all the way at the top. But I will say this much. In any organization, if you have problems at the top of the organization, they shall manifest at the lowest levels. And I think that that's one of the things I'm afraid of, is that there's people, and I actually believe that this gun violence in North Charleston is really greed violence, and to explain that, the love of money is the root of all sorts of evils. Whenever you have people at the top of the food chain that's concerned about the way they look and naming things after their family and friends and throwing favors here and there, that loses the respect of the rank and file citizen. And whenever you lose the respect of the rank and file citizen, they're thinking, well, they're doing their thing. They got their gig, I gotta get my gig. And so all it is a mimicking of the problems of the greed that's at the top of the food chain. And keep up the good work. You know, everybody here is saying good things about what's been going on with the new hires and stuff. And some of the longtime police officers are, you know, that are pretty high up in your organization are agreeing with me. You know, so oh my gosh, I just love what you're doing. I think talking about gun control needs to start happening at every level. And the only real idea I have that I would like to try would be to set up not only some of the things that's already been voiced, but actually set up an a reward program. Anybody who finds that perpetrator, that person that shouldn't have a gun, and we make an arrest and a conviction, we should throw thousands of dollars at that person. We can turn the community that's worried about money against those who are doing this stuff.
Mayor Summey.
The gun issue we have is not legal guns, it's illegal guns in the street. And we would love to know where they all come from. Because we've got young people that are out there with guns that we have no report of being stolen. Although we do lose a number of guns out of vehicles, people leave their cars with a gun in their car. It's dangerous. But what we're trying to do is go after the source of where all these guns are coming from. And it's a major challenge because there's so many young people in the streets, and a lot of our gun issues are with people under the age of 25. And the Chief is doing an excellent job. We're trying to find out exactly who is bringing them into the area, but they're at the disposal. It's sad, but a lot of times it takes the family to help us, because if you've got a young person in your home that's got a gun and you know it, you need to let us know. I mean, that child does not need to have a gun, and we will be glad to help you eliminate that problem with your child before something happens that your child gets in trouble. It's a sad state of affairs, but if you do have a gun, do not leave it in your car. Do not leave your car unlocked, because there are a number of thefts per year in the city of guns stolen out of parked vehicles. And we need the entire public's help in eliminating that.
Gun violence. One of the things that we have to do is better educate our people. I took the course to carry a gun. And in that course, there were many things that you just would not think about as an everyday citizen without someone who is trained, sitting down and telling you and giving you some explanation. So if you're going to have one, then it is extremely important that that course be taken. Now, when it comes to the violence that we have in North Charleston, we have to first determine whether the gun violence is a problem or a symptom of a larger problem. And I submit to you that the gun violence is not the problem, but it is a symptom. You see, the gun itself is neutral. It takes an active person willing to use that gun to commit violence. And so when we begin to dissect it, we find that the violence that is in the individual that then takes the gun and uses it, normally that comes from an extended period of that individual not being taught something because of lack of education. So the symptom that we have of gun violence, one, chronic joblessness over an extended period of time. Take a look at Michelle Alexander's book, The New Jim Crow. Look at any national study. Violence increases as unemployment increases. So if we want to get the crime down, let's help people get jobs and contracts. We say that we cannot find where the guns are coming from. When it came to the person getting shot on Park Circle, immediately the city reacted and we got that taken care of. On Hanover Street, immediately reaction taken care of. All of our communities are important, every single one of them. When we take a look at gun violence, we have to go back to looking at the family and protecting the family from the inception of that child and what goes on in that family. And if it is a broken home or a whole home that cannot make ends meet, the parents have less time to put into the children. I grew up in a family where we had guns in the house. Not once did we ever touch them, would not even think about touching them, even if we walked by them and saw them, because it was known. Our parents spent the type of time with us to let us know that this is a dangerous weapon. And so we had a full appreciation. Not that when we went to the country, our parents or grandparents didn't show us how to use them and when they should be appropriately used. But when you have young children raising young children in a family situation where they're working 2 and 3 jobs to make ends meet, it's very difficult for the child to be able to get proper education.
Is that a rebuttal?
Yes.
30 seconds.
We gotta understand that when it comes to gun violence, you take the gun out of it, all you have is violence, okay? And I know Ashley said that I offered no solutions, so let me briefly just say solutions, okay? Stiffer penalties for illegal possessions, okay? Instead of slap on the wrist and let back into society, our judges need to do something bigger than that, okay? We need to overturn the no snitch rule that we can do with public service announcements directly from the mayor's office back. We can do that. We need to have gun buybacks with a significant incentive for folks to turn in real good weapons as opposed to just a gift card for Walmart.
Time. Thank you all so much. As promised, we have allotted 3 minutes at the end of the program for the candidates to do their closing remarks. We'd like to say that we have a plethora of wonderful questions that we wish we had the opportunity to ask. We will share these with the AKA so that maybe they can establish them and get them back to the candidates for a further dialogue. But we'd like to thank you all for your obedience. Thank the candidates for keeping it somewhat respectful. And now we will have our closing remarks. We will start at the end with Sister Peel, and then we'll go down the road, ending with Pastor Dixon, just to thank you for the opportunity to do this. This is my first time, and hopefully I have represented National Action Network well.
Thank you. I hope you don't mind. I'll stand again. We've heard a lot today about all of the issues and everything that's going wrong in North Charleston. But we've got, as a community, some pretty good building blocks to work with. It's not all bad. We've got major manufacturers, Boeing and Mercedes-Benz here, who have put us on the national map. We're the #1 retail city in the state of South Carolina. We've invested in senior centers, athletic complexes, and in Park Circle. And there's no denying the role that Mayor Summey has played in those successes. Mayor Summey, we thank you for your service in the past 25 years to this city. We wouldn't be here without it. But it's time to hand the torch off. It's time to hand the torch to someone with the energy and the leadership that can continue to build on the good things, but also significantly move the needle in some of the bad areas. So let's continue to put our name on the national map by not selling off our land and our resources to the industrial complexes, but by attracting high-profile technology companies here so that we can embrace our identity as the Silicon Harbor. And let's attract green manufacturing jobs here so that our city can be on the forefront of creating solutions for the climate crisis. We can make these changes. But we also got to address the bad, because we cannot be a world-class city until we address some of the issues with our crime, with our inequality, our education, our infrastructure, and our affordability. So we need a leader who's willing to tackle those issues and who's willing to put investment and resources behind tackling those issues. You know, North Charleston has the foundation of a truly great city. And that foundation is our people. It's all of you. We're a very diverse city. We're young and old. We have singles and families, gay and straight, and black and white, y la gente hispánica que viven en esta ciudad. But what we need is a leader who can be a uniting force for all those groups, who can unite us around working towards the type of vision that we have for our city. And I want to be that leader for North Charleston. We need a leader who can look at the little girl from the trailer park and see the potential for that little girl to grow up to be mayor. We need someone who can look at something, a place, or someone and see not what it is, but what it could become. We need unity. We need less hate. We need more working together and sharing of ideas. We need more fostering of community. A united North Charleston can be a truly world-class city. And a united North Charleston that's growing equitably and sustainably is what you can expect when Mayor Peel takes office. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
I'm not doing this to make you look short. I was the shortest person in my class in every school I was in until the 7th grade. Wow. And so I understand. I agree with everything Ms. Peel said. Oh my gosh, what sharp people we have up here. I'm going to go back to what I really think needs to happen. And it really is bringing city government back to the people. Whenever I talk about doubling the city council seats, is to get more people. It's getting handshakes closer to those making decisions. We need to make the mayor's seat a weak seat. He needs to be a tiebreaker. A visionary. We need visionaries. We don't need people that are delegating and somehow always benefiting themselves. To me, a public servant is somebody who gives more than they take. A self-servant is somebody who takes more than they give. And I think that's a real simple way to look at all the candidates. Which candidate is more likely to give more than they take? And that's the bottom line. Whenever we start preferring other people before ourselves, that's whenever the community, the trust of the community, and when we talk about the gun violence, people won't tell on somebody they don't like because they don't trust the leadership. And this is a cultural norm that has to change. I've actually been a victim where somebody who didn't tell me, didn't warn me about something, says, well, I didn't want to snitch somebody out. Well, you snitched me out. Who do you like more? And they actually were dumbfounded because they actually wouldn't snitch out the person that they didn't care for to protect the person that they did care for. So there's a cultural change, and it really has to start at the top. We need to start giving up what appears to be selfish behavior. We need to start being a community that respects that our leadership is giving more than they're taking, and including more people. I don't believe that I can even light a candle in front of some of these candidates as far as their intelligence and their experience. But I will tell you this much. I can get people working together. If we focus on loving your neighbor as yourself, we can all do this and make North Charleston a model city for the rest of the country to marvel at.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank the group for putting this on. You've done a wonderful job. It's a great service to the city that you're doing this. Also, let me tell you that I think we've made great strides as a city in the 25 years that I've been mayor. Are we perfect? No way. And I don't know if any city will ever be perfect, but the council and the mayor will continue to strive, no matter who's in that place, to make this a better place to live, work, and play. I'm proud of the city of North Charleston. I'm proud of where we've come from a base closure, where we were losing 6,000 civilian employees and over 20,000 military personnel. And we kept moving. The community came together in support of what we were trying to do to make the state a very vital part of the community of the greater Charleston area. And in fact, it's larger now, and it has more input than it ever has. We've got issues, but growth always brings issues, and you have to work with them. One of the major issues that we have is most of the roads in the city of North Charleston are either federal or state or county. They're not city streets. So we have to get permission. I put up stop signs in one of the neighborhoods. The community called and said they had speeding down the street. I went and had our public works department go every other street and put a stop sign. 2 days later, the state pulled them up and said I had no right to put up stop signs on the state street. One person called in a complaint. They pulled them. So that's the type of things that we have to deal with on a daily basis. We want this community and every community within the city of North Charleston to be as strong as it possibly can. And I will continue to work for all the people of the city of North Charleston as diligently as I can to make the quality of life better for each and every one of us. And debate is good. I admire all these folks that are seeking the office, and I believe North Charleston will have a great future no matter who your mayor is.
I want to thank the AKAs for putting this debate on, as well as in 2015 when I was the only candidate that actually showed up for the debate. You know, a true champion gets better and improves by focusing on correcting mistakes, not just talking about the things that they've done. It's been good. Moving forward with North Charleston, we have to admit that we have some things to work on. There's no way to get better without doing that. As much as we would like to say that we have a safe city that protects our citizens, it is not true at this point. We have the highest crime in the state. Under my administration, simple. We will focus on that and correct it. We will no longer be the crime capital of South Carolina. We will no longer be the highest, one of the highest in the nation when it comes to homicides. We have got to correct that problem, and we cannot do that by getting ourselves to believe that everything is okay. When it comes to housing, affordable housing, we need affordable housing in North Charleston. There's no reason why the city should reject individuals who are trying to bring in affordable housing to this city. Under my administration, simple. If you live in North Charleston and you want to own your own home, we will take 30% of your income, 30%, and based on that, we will help you get in a home that you own, not rent. When it comes to the community centers, I've got a plan for a comprehensive community center. That comprehensive community center entails medical within that center, indoor basketball, indoor swimming, police in each one of those centers. Why? Because it allows community policing to be carried out in a better fashion because the department is spread throughout the city. So it's rather than centralized, more distributed. That helps not only with the relationship, the race relationships with the police department and the citizens, because you're now working every day getting to know the people in the community and some of the issues that you can also bring back to the city to help them discuss. Contracts. $75 million the city gives in contracts. We have to share that. When it comes to education, we already know what to do. We've got the #1 school in the nation. Why do we have to go or look anywhere else when we have got in our city the #1 school? We use that as a pattern for all of the students. My name is John Singletary. I'm the candidate for mayor, and I'm asking for your vote. Thank you.
I'm a resident of North Charleston.
And I've been a resident of North Charleston since 1985, off and on. And I don't know about any of you all that might be residents of North Charleston, but consistently we've heard this rosy red picture being painted of the city that has omitted the reality of the daily trials and tribulations that many citizens of North Charleston have to go through. Because they're undereducated, because they're underpaid, because they're being forced from their houses, and because they have to live in fear, can't even sit on their porches anymore. And we're operating right now under an administration, a mayoral administration that's been in power 25 years. And while other segments of North Charleston society have thrived, there's a large portion, especially on the south end, who are not only struggling, but they're drowning. It's a mayor's job to take care of all of the city, not some of the city. To look out for the needs of everyone in the city, not some of the people in the city. Yes, to bring industry into the city, but make sure that those who are in the city are equipped to fill the jobs that come here. Unfortunately, it has not happened in the last 25 years, and that's why we see the problem that's on the south end right now. Along with the fact that, and I respect my opponent here, John Singletary, but he came out of college in '83 and has done nothing to enrich his city since then. Nothing. Where's the fingerprint? Where's the footprint at? It's not there. And we like to talk about the homeboy. Well, I respect the homeboy, but this Cumbia has put in more work than everybody on this panel, with the exception of the mayor. And we know what the mayor has already omitted in his work.
You've had no solutions. You made nothing happen. Oh,
Excuse me. Where did that come from? There's a such thing as professional decorum no matter where we are. And to lose that professional decorum at any time is inappropriate. And that's why I need to become mayor, because I'm about empowering people to do better. Not to drop the level of hoodism. Not to go to that area that allows people to shoot each other and kill each other and disrespect one another, but to raise everybody to a standard where we respect what we each have to say, what we each have to do, and we can agree to disagree without becoming disagreeable. And it's time for a city in North Charleston where that is the order of the day, where we all will work together, and together we all will do better. Thank you. I'm Pastor Thomas Dixon, and I'm looking for and expecting your support and your vote in the November election, because I am the only candidate that promises new leadership with a new vision for an all-inclusive new North Charleston.
Please give a round of applause to all for these ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. It is my pleasure to serve as your moderators this afternoon.